Looks like we are live. Welcome, everyone. Hope you are having a great week. It's Thursday already. I can't believe it. So, today we're going to be talking about 5 things to help you light up your life. And so, if this is your first time joining me, my name is Tina. I am a happiness coach and I help people feel happier. Basically, a long story short is I help you feel happier. And that is not dependent on external factors. Okay, this isn't whether you're making a ton of money, you're not making any money, you're working, not working, you have a family, you don't have a family, you have a partner, you don't have a partner. These tools, these strategies work in both cases, and so I am here to share some things with you today. So, the first thing that I want to share is uh, that can help you feel happier in your day to day life is purging. So, a lot of times we build up a lot of things, we build up a lot of energy, we build up a lot of negativity throughout our day. We pick up stuff along the way and we usually put it to the side thinking we're going to deal with it later, going to do something with it later. And we end up having all of this buildup. This also happens with our emotions. Maybe we're at work all day and we're like, you know what, I can't deal with this right now. I need to focus on this next meeting. I need to do this next thing. And we end up feeling that heaviness of all of these emotions that we're carrying around every time that we had to bite our tongue, every time we wanted to, lose our shit on something. We have all of this excess energy and we need to be able to purge that out. So there's a few different ways that you can do that depending on what it is that you're trying to purge. But keep in mind that when you're going through a purging process, it often will look worse before it gets better. Think about cleaning out a closet. So if you're cleaning out a closet, the first thing you have to do is pull everything out of the closet, figure out what's in there, especially if it's been in there a while, and then you need to sort through, do I really need this? Am I going to use this? What is this? What's the purpose of this? And is it going to bring me happiness, or did it bring me happiness in the past, but I am not likely to use this stuff anytime soon? So looking at those kind of things that you can actually purge and get rid of a lot of stuff that will that's holding you down, either energetically, physically, even purging weight, right? Getting rid of even just a little bit. It doesn't even have to be perfect, but just getting rid of a little bit will help you in so many ways. You will feel so much better, and that will definitely lighten the load of what it is that you're carrying, and it will brighten up your life. The second thing is so if you are feeling down, you're feeling negative, that you're feeling maybe depressed, and you're stuck, you feel stuck, maybe you feel numb and stuff like that. If you're feeling those kind of things, one of the things that I will do is what's happening in those moments is you are too self focused. And I know, everybody's like, no, Tina's just a people pleaser. But this works like you would not believe. If you are feeling down, you're feeling negative, you're feeling overwhelmed, what you need to do is step out of self. You're too focused on yourself in that particular moment. You're too stuck in fear. So the act of stepping out of self and doing something for somebody else. Now, here's the caveat. It is even better if you do something for somebody else and not get caught. Okay, so if anybody knows that you've done it, it doesn't count and you have to do something else. If you start acting in this way, I promise you, you will start to feel happier. You will feel like your life has been lit up, and you will not feel so depressed, no, not feel anxious. I don't know anybody that if they are voluntarily, now it's different. If you feel like you have to help somebody, then that can build up a lot of resentment. So that is the next piece. So the third thing is learning to say no. If anybody is trying to use coercion, guilt, fear, intimidation, or anything like that to try and motivate you, to get you to do anything, number one, don't use that tactic because it will always come back and bite you in the butt. Number two is if you are experiencing that and you end up giving in and you're like, oh, you know what, they're just going to cause a big fuss, it's going to be a problem, I'm just going to go ahead and do it so they shut up, right? Or they leave me alone or do whatever. If you do any of those kind of things, what you are doing in those moments is you are setting yourself up for resentment. And resentment are just premeditated expectations. So that's what resentments are. Is they're expectations that haven't been properly communicated, and you end up having this false sense of, if I do this, then I'm going to get that. And that's not aligned with the energy of love. It is, yes, there's a give and receive, but that's not what giving and receiving is. So giving and receiving is there's a natural flow. If there's a forced push, that if I do this for you, then there's this expectation, then that's a contract, right? And some contracts are great to be in. Other times, if you feel like you've been forced into a contract, that's not a good situation to be in, right? If and all that will do is lead to resentment, and people will not show up as their best self when they're doing that. If you get them under a contract where they feel like they got conned into it, they feel like they got tricked into it in some way, you might get away with it in the beginning, but there's a long-term consequence for that, and it just leaves a bad taste. And this is where I love it when in business people say feelings don't matter, leave your feelings at the door. They don't. Absolutely, feelings matter in business, because if your customer feels like you truly care about them, or anybody in your life, they feel like you truly care about them, more than likely they are willing to let something slide if you've made a mistake. If they hate your guts and they feel like you cheated them, you swindled them, you did something nefarious to them, you could do everything perfect and they will find a speck of dust and blow it up like it's the worst thing in the world. And so this is why it's really important not to have that energy. Don't allow that to come into any of your relationships, and being aware of what it is that you bring to the table. What are you doing that is causing that in the relationship? Are did you go for a quick win, or you just didn't have the bandwidth to deal with it, so just said whatever they wanted to hear? And if you do this with your spouse, then eventually that's going to catch up to you, and either you're going to feel like you don't care about them or they don't care about you because you're always giving in. And so this can happen in business as well. And when this happens in business, this could be something along the lines of, say your sales team is under a lot of pressure to hit numbers. So they start bending the rules. They start embellishing just a little bit. It was just a little white lie. It wasn't that big of a deal. You know what? I was doing what's in their best interest, and I got them into the program, didn't I? I got them to do this, or I got them to take action. If you do that in a way that is trickery, that is never a good thing, and you will end up seeing things like cancellations, refunds, difficult clients to deal with. And you definitely do not want to have that. You will end up being extremely unhappy in your business. So make sure that you are always doing the fourth thing is authenticity. Being true to yourself first and foremost, and knowing what it is that is important to you. If you don't do this, again, you're leading yourself down the road to resentment. And I've been guilty of this, and I didn't even realize I was so used to doing it. And I thought in some ways that I had been better in some areas. But you hit new levels and you start to become aware of old patterns and old behaviors. No different than purging. It's like you can clean out. Have you guys ever cleaned out your drawer where there's like a bunch of Tupperware and everything? I don't know how many times where I've gone and I've matched up the containers to the lids, and I'm like, okay, everything matches. If I don't have a match, then I throw it out. And it doesn't take long, and next thing you know, you're missing a lid, or you've got this extra container and you're like, where did this come from? What's going on? It's no different than socks, right? You start missing socks. So going back to it, so these are things that will cycle through. They are not a one and done. So they require maintenance. They require due diligence, right? And in business, I've seen this with SOPs, right? SOPs, everybody, if you're on a kick, I've been through so many ISO 9000 implementations where you have to go through, you implement all the processes, you document everything, you get everything done, you hit the goal, you hit the deadline, and nobody looks at them again until the next audit or whatever. And next thing you know, you go back to you try to show the auditor that, oh, here's the SOP, we've got all these things, and you start to look at it and you're like, we don't follow any of that or we follow 10% of it or 50% of it, whatever it is, and you're like, oh, that's got to be updated. So having routine maintenance and being able to go through that again helps minimize how big of a problem. Now, if you haven't looked at some of these things in a long while, so if you haven't dug through your emotions, you haven't questioned yourself, you haven't looked at what you truly want out of your life and evaluating where you're at right now, and is this on track to where you want to be? Are you truly happy with this? Did this produce whatever goal you're chasing? Did it produce the results that you were looking for? If I do this, I should feel X, right? Or Y. And oftentimes we just set the next thing, and we don't question. If you don't feel as happy achieving something, what changed, right? What did you have different expectations and it didn't turn out to be the way that you thought? What is it that you learned along the way? Because when you are able to be authentic with yourself and be honest with yourself, and the more you're able to do this, the better quality of the solutions you're going to be able to come up with. Because if you can't truly identify what's going on and what the problem is, then you won't actually be able to solve it. So being really clear, being understanding of what it is that you want, and whether or not the things that you have done or are doing are actually getting you the results that you're looking for. And the fifth thing is understanding timelines. Nothing will make us unhappier than expectation of timelines. And so this can be a huge range of things. So if you are expecting something to happen within a certain timeline and it takes 10 times longer, 5 times longer, or every time you're trying to go through it, you hit an obstacle that delays you, and there's a problem, and this and that, and you keep getting frustrated, you keep being unhappy with the timeline, and you're so hung up on the time factor of it, you're just going to get upset, you're going to feel unhappy, and you're not going to appreciate what the true progress is and the true journey of things are. And this can happen in a lot of different ways. Uh, so, say, for example, way back, I've gotten better, although most people don't believe me. Uh, Being on time is something that is very relative to me. If it is something where people are highly dependent on me, I am clear about what is expected, I will be on time. I will probably be early and make sure that that is something that is important. If it is something that is routine, I probably will not factor that in. I will probably try to finish what it is that I'm doing first and then get to the thing. Um, it's a little bit more fluid that way. So you have people that are very rigid on timelines, and then you have people that are more fluid on timelines. Neither one is necessarily wrong, because there's nothing worse than somebody who freaks out that somebody was late, and then how guilty do you feel if you found out that person, the reason they were late is they had an emergency that they truly had to deal with, not the fake ones that a lot of people come up with. I was a supervisor, I was a manager before. I know. I know that you get a lot of bullshit answers sometimes, right? But I'm talking about the true, authentic ones. And there's been times where I've made the mistake where I got frustrated at somebody that wasn't on time, that we were counting on, and it ended up causing some problems. The customers were getting angry because they couldn't get a hold of anybody. Then I had to deal with something. And so what ends up happening is you end up lashing out on somebody because they didn't follow through. Instead of really what's going on is you got afraid, you got upset, you're like, okay, I was expecting them here, they're not here, and I had to deal with it. So being able to clearly articulate why it's important for somebody to be on time. Now, excuse me, for especially if you're dealing with somebody who's a little bit more fluid in the timelines. And so for myself, I used to have this friend. She was really strict on, and she would get very upset if people weren't on time. And by on time, I usually meant 10 minutes early or something like that, because if you're not 10 minutes early, you're late. So over time in our friendship, it kind of ended up balancing out, because she knew ahead of time that I probably was going to be a little bit late, so she would factor that in, especially since I was just going over to hang out. We didn't have a dinner planned, we didn't have a show we were watching, we didn't have anything. I was just going to hang out. There was nothing planned. So for me, from my perspective, I always felt it was unreasonable for her to become extremely unhappy with the timelines when I was just going over to hang out. So turning that stuff into a drama was something that we had to start to understand both perspectives. This wasn't something that it's like everybody was waiting for me and dinner wasn't ready or dinner was overcooked or something because I was late. No, that wasn't it. It was just going to hang out. So paying attention to, now, at the same time, I also had to tighten up on my side and make sure that I was at least close to the time, or at least would give her a heads up of what a realistic time was. And I wasn't always good with predicting that, but I got better. And she got better at not being so upset at those timelines. So being aware of that, where you are at in the scale of, are you more rigid on your timelines? Is that something really important? And what feelings come up for you if somebody is late? Do you see that as a sign of disrespect? Somebody not caring? Do you actually communicate that you feel like when somebody is late, I feel like you don't care about me? Do you actually say that? Because if you tried that and let them know that this is how I feel about it, rather than you're a terrible person, you can't show up on time, I can't count on you, you always let me down. That's all blame, and that's just going to cause a divide rather than, you know what? I was really counting on you to be here, and I feel hurt that you didn't show up on time. That's taking ownership. That's taking a more authentic approach and being vulnerable about what it is that you are truly upset about. You know what? And on the other side, for the person that shows up late, I will speak from this perspective. I would be upset if I knew that I hurt my friend's feelings. Now, if I feel like they're going to be unreasonable about it, like in the case where we're just hanging out and it wasn't that big a deal, that being said, I'm not going to discount their feelings. I'm going to say, you know what? Yeah, I should have called. I should have let you know that I was running behind, or I should have waited for that activity and done it later, and taking accountability and changing my behavior so that it improves. Now, keeping in mind that people are not perfect, that these things are, she's going to get ticked off at me when I'm late, and I'm going to be probably not always on time. And so making sure that we correct the behaviors rather than diminishing the person. And so for me, that was something that was a big key to happiness, of paying attention to the time and being aware of which side that you're on and how do you get it so that it's more neutral. And so when I do those kind of things, that helps me be happier. It helps the people around me be happier when I'm much more conscious of the time factors and who I'm dealing with. If I have another person that is just as fluid as me, maybe I turn into the one that's a time Nazi, right? And I end up going all ballistic. It's like, no, it would take a lot for me to go down that road. But yeah, so those are 5 things that you can do to help increase your happiness. And I hope those pieces helped you. And guys, tomorrow is Friday. This will be the last of the free days. I do have a community that I am starting up, and this will be similar to this. So 20 minutes, a nice topic of kind of going over it, and you guys can also share your thoughts, your perspective, and be able to get your questions answered. And this is my daily dose of happiness community. So if you're interested in joining that, let me know, send me a DM, and I will get you set up in the school community for that, and then we can start to have those. So after this week, I will be reducing some of the training. I won't be on every day, but I will be reducing it, and so you will still get some for free. But if you really want to be interactive with me and get some feedback and maybe ask questions of things that are causing you unhappiness in your life, and I can give you some insight as to what you could do to kind of improve that. So this is a group coaching situation, one-on-one coaching. I'm extremely selective of who I work with, and those are for really challenging cases, people that are have often been called narcissists, and they're the hopeless cases that people believe will never change. I am not one of those people. I do not believe that. And I have helped people be able to change their life, and I know that you too can be happy without being abusive. So, guys, with that, I'm going to wrap up today's training. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, make sure that you like, comment, and share. And we will see you again tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Take care. Bye.